back to Indianomics. We are discussing food inflation, rains, and the long-term prospects of inflation control. My guests are Sajjit Chinoy of JP Morgan, Surinder of Business Standard, and G. Chandrashekhar, the commodities expert. Mr. Chandrashekhar, which are the crops that are in danger, and how many of this can be ameliorated with imports?
Let me first mention the latest report of the Weather Watch Group as of 10 July shows a substantial lag in the actual planting acreage as of 10 July. But I must also mention that there is always a lag between what is reported by the government and the actual acreage, and therefore we need to wait probably for a couple of more weeks to get to know what is the actual acreage as of mid-July. This is one, but the crops that are more susceptible, that are more vulnerable to dry conditions in the second half of July would obviously be pulses, would obviously be coarse grains, and of course oil seeds. And particularly when we talk of oil seeds, it will be soybean and groundnut. If we talk of coarse grains, it will be maize in particular, and pulses, tur, urad, and moong. I think these are crops which are susceptible, and when you have cloud cover in different parts of the country without rain, that also creates conditions for pest and disease attack.
Okay.
As of now, the pest attack is much below the economic threshold, but if this continues, a cloud cover without rain, that can potentially, the crops are at risk of pest attack.
But the crops you're talking about can be compensated by imports.
Yes, in some way, edible oil import and pulses import. Then let me come to the global situation. Fortunately for us, the U.S. continues to enjoy, the Midwest, the whole of North America for that matter, continues to enjoy excellent weather, and therefore we are going to have in the U.S. bumper crop of corn, bumper wheat, cotton, soybean, canola in Canada, and therefore global prices are going to be contained. Global prices are going to be friendly, particularly with crude oil still at a very consumer-friendly level, relatively more consumer-friendly currently. I think global food inflation is not going to be a worry, and that can potentially, to some extent, rub off on the Indian situation.
Fair enough.
But India has its own dynamics, and therefore the extent of the impact of global food prices will certainly have some impact on India, but there are limits.
All right. Well, Mr. Sood, running out of time, do you notice any long-term or medium-term steps that have been taken to improve agricultural productivity? Any improvement in APMC laws, or even in terms of reaching out to the farmer?
Unfortunately, not much has been done to improve the supply side constraints. What the government has been doing is to manage the prices from the consumer point of view, and their policies have invariably been consumer oriented, and in the process what they end up doing is to artificially depress the prices at the time of the fresh harvest when the farmer brings the produce. The farmer doesn't get adequate remuneration for their crops, and as a result the farmer does not have much incentive to grow more. You see, this is reflected also in the fact that although pulses have remained high, but the economic theory is that the production always responds to demand and prices. But this is not happening in the case of pulses. This is not happening in the case of oil seeds. The only, I mean, to my mind, the only reason for that is that because the farmers are not being allowed to reap good returns for their crops, so that they have an incentive to produce. So in the case of marketing that you have mentioned, the marketing reforms also have not moved ahead much, though the government has been trying to persuade the states to amend their APMC Acts, and many of them have done so also. But then again, there are very few who have done it strictly on the lines of the model APMC Act, which was bills that was circulated by the center way back in 2003. And many of the states who have amended the APMC Acts they have not framed the rules under the law so that it can be...
Okay, sir. So not
now
much
they are
progress.
talking of the...
Not much progress on that.
Yeah, not
running
much
out of
progress,
time. Well, Sajjit, wind it up for us from what you heard from the other two agriculture experts. Should you worry that we could have a runaway inflation, or do you think this would be contained and we will manage to keep general inflation well under 6% by the end of the current fiscal?
Well, I'm not sure I'll say well under 6%, Latha. I think the point here is that nobody is making the case that all of agricultural problems have been solved. Far from it. Lots has to be done on productivity, on supply chain management.
No, I'm only asking if you can see incremental change.
Yeah. We are seeing incremental change, and I think that's the point to make. That I think one of the most important reforms is the fact that MSPs now for 3 years have come down. It has a much larger and broader impact than just cereals inflation, because if for many years farmers get the sense that the old regime of 15% growth in the price MSPs of rice and wheat have gone away, then you will get farmers actually responding to market signals. Then you will get greater acreage being devoted to coarse cereals or to pulses. For all these years, higher MSPs created a one-sided bet. So I think that is a very important structural reform. There are lots of residual issues on vegetables and fruits. But the fact again is, if you look at the volatility of vegetable prices in the last 12 months, it's reduced substantially, which gives you some sense that at least things like hoarding, speculation, which were rampant 3-4 years ago, have now been contained. So incremental steps have been taken. A lot more needs to be done. But I want to just point out a couple of risks here. One risk is that, as you mentioned, the monsoon, low global food prices are a big advantage. But pulses is a key area, a source of pressure. And India is a price setter in international markets. Most of the pulses we import are from Myanmar, and the minute we have a bad monsoon, global pulse prices go up. So there is a source of stress over there. But the bottom line, I think, is, I'll just summarize by saying, while there could be some increase in food inflation in the remaining months, especially if the monsoon underwhelms, we won't be, I think, given the changes we've discussed, in a situation like 2009, 10 or 11, where you had consistently double-digit food inflation. I think that's what's going to give the central banks a little bit more comfort.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me, but you may want to listen into this conversation. Joining me now actually is the Agriculture Secretary, Mr. Siraj Hussain, who's perhaps best placed to say what the government has in place, given the potential shortfall in Western India, in the states of Maharashtra, Karnataka, Central India and Gujarat. Mr. Hussain, thank you very much for joining me. The first question really is the government of the belief that there could be a shortfall in these states? What are the steps being taken to ensure that we get a substantial agricultural output from these states?
See, out of 36 subdivisions, the rainfall has been excess or normal in 24 subdivisions. And in 12 subdivisions, the rainfall is deficient. So there is a little bit of concern about the states in western part of the country where the rainfall is less than the normal rainfall. Especially in Gujarat, Saurashtra and Marathwada, etc., Madhya Maharashtra, the rainfall is lower. Similarly, in North Interior Karnataka, also the rainfall is lower. Coastal Karnataka also it is lower. So we are in touch with these state governments, and in fact, in the month of April itself, we held meeting at Krida in Hyderabad, that is the Center for Dryland Agriculture, where the state governments agreed to prepare a detailed contingency plan for each district. And if it does not rain in the next couple of days, then the contingency plan will be operationalized. And we do hope that in fact, the prediction is that there might be revival of rainfall in some parts of the country.
I wanted to draw your attention to pulses in particular, because there we already saw a 22% jump year on year in the latest CPI figures, and the wholesale figures also indicated that the month-on-month jump was about 10% or perhaps even more, actually. 10% month-on-month. Is there any step being taken in terms of imports or in terms of even crop salvaging?
No, it has already been announced by the government that if necessary, government will import. So the meeting of the Price Stabilization Fund is taking place today, and a decision will be taken in the next couple of days. So the government, if necessary, will import some quantity, and we will intervene in the market to cool down the prices.
The third area of concern has been vegetables. We saw vegetable inflation go up by about 13% in the month of June over the month of May. It's particularly acute in vegetables like onions and potatoes. Any steps being taken in this context? Is the APMC reform helping at all? Has there been any reform?
No, in case of onions, we are quite confident that we will be able to check the inflationary trends, because the government agencies have onion in their stock, and we are talking to various state governments, especially Delhi, and we are asking them to give us their demand, and it should be possible for us to keep the inflationary pressure on onion in check. But we do realize that vegetables are affected more quickly than other crops because of their very perishable nature. So we do hope that with the establishment of a national market, agriculture market, in due course of time, the marketing will improve and the supply chain will also improve.
It's only a pilot in Karnataka. Is there a national market that you see in 1 year's time?
Of course. It has, in fact, only last week, the agriculture ministers of 11 states participated in a conference at Hubli.
Yes.
And they
I'm aware that it has happened in Karnataka, but
the ministers were demonstrated the efficient functioning of the market there. And we hope that several states will undertake the reforms which have been suggested to them. And it should not be difficult at all.
So within a year you expect an APMC connectivity across states?
First of all, the markets will open up within a state. So right now the markets are fragmented, and for every mandi, a trader needs a license, a wholesaler needs a license. So first of all, one license would be enough for the entire state.
And interstate connectivity, sir? Because, I mean, after all, potatoes and onions are very, very state specific.
See, interstate connectivity will take place through traders and commission agents to begin with. Interstate connectivity through a software, placing the order without any middleman is, going to take a little bit of time till the intra-state barriers are broken and the trade is facilitated.
All right, that's something to hope for, Mr. Hussain. Thank you very much for joining me. That's it on this edition of INDIANOMICS. Thanks for watching.